Hello, everybody. This is Takeshi of Quick USA, and
This is Kasia from Ikigai Connection.
we are Shushoku Cafe. We talk about Japan-related job positions and Japan-related lifestyle here in USA. And today we have a special guest. We have two special guests, and here's one. Guest is
Hi, my name is Zachary Williams. I'm also at Quick USA. I work in both sales and in recruiting for the company.
all right, and then here is.
Hi, I'm Michael Coleman. I'm not cool enough to work at Quick USA.
Thank you so much for your time today. And I think we're going to talk today about your relations. So, Kasia, can you ask the questions about those, Tima?
Absolutely. So this topic came about because we often hear about job seekers and everybody in general being afraid of, like what networking is and what connecting with others in the US Japan space is about. So we are here with some pretty cool people to make you feel much better about how this is actually just creating relationships, just making friends and being a part of something really, really good. So we're all going to help answer some of these questions. And so I'm going to start off with three main questions for our two special guests today. And the first I'll ask Zach and then I'll ask Mike. Tell us a little bit about, just a tiny bit about your background with Japan, studying the language, maybe your time in Japan, and then give us a little bit about what you are doing now.
Sure. Well, if I'm going first, once again, my name is Zachary Williams. My initial introduction with Japan and the culture started like pretty much any American my age, which was the common cultural export. I watched anime as a kid. I saw Pokemon on TV growing up, and that was where it all started. I didn't start taking the language and study too seriously until my second year of college, which is when I took Japanese 101. And after I had taken about 2 years of language classes at Cal State Long Beach, in addition to my major, I spent 1 year studying abroad in a city called Tenri in Nara Prefecture in Japan, a little bit of a countryside town where there weren't as many English speakers. My hope was that it would help me get a little better if there weren't too many other English speakers around, and it worked out pretty well for me. After leaving my 1 year study abroad in Japan, I came back to the States to finish up my degree. I graduated in 2020, which was not a great year to enter the job. And after, a few years post-COVID of looking for the right opportunity, I had signed up for Quick USA actually as an applicant. I was hoping that Quick USA would help me find a job. And my recruiter, who I met with at the time, he actually recommended to me an open position in the Orange County branch of our company. I went in and interviewed there, and now after getting the job very gracefully, I'm very gracious for the opportunity. I've been with Quick for a little over a year now, working as a recruiter and doing a little bit of sales work as well.
Very nice. Thank you. And then I'll pass the mic over to Mike. Haha, gyagu. Mike, tell us a little bit about your story, and don't forget to tell people how we met.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was. This Japanese journey. I think it's partially anime, but it was when I got to college, I didn't want to study Spanish because I had trouble with Spanish because it was so similar to English that I would get confused. So I wanted to start fresh. I'm like, I'll either do Russian or Japanese. And I'm like, I got a lot of Akira. I'll check out Japanese. And so I took Japanese 101 for the first semester, and they trick you because they make it so easy. And so by the end, you're like, I'm really good at this. And then everything there's downhill. I just was really attracted, like the language made sense logically. I always hated the thing about in an English language, it's like someone will ask you like, did you fall down the hill or didn't you do this? And you go, no, I didn't. And it's like, no, the answer is yes, I didn't. And so in Japanese, that's what it was. And I was like, finally, it was a stupid nitpick. But also I wanted to learn so I could translate my Akira comics. After about 3.5 years where I bumped into Kasia a few times, I think, was it just because you were friends with Michelle? Is that how we met?
And Hirakawa sensei, we had the same Japanese teacher.
Oh, were you in the same class?
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing about our class.
A long time ago.
Everybody in our classes had the most impossible to pronounce Japanese names in Japanese.
Yes.
Like, what's your last name?
So in katakana, it was Boito Kofusuki.
Sure. And we had teachers that, we did lots of sketches, and it was one teacher who especially never used Japanese. You had Shirakawa, ne?
Yeah.
So he never used Japanese. We learned so much about Japanese from him that it was great for a fundamental thing. But then when I got into the next year with, everyone speaking Japanese, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I would listen to the listening lab and be like, I can't separate words. So I was like, I'll go on Jet. because then I'll finally get to know Japanese. I tried to do study abroad, but I didn't get in. And so, yeah, I went there, but I'd taken off 6 months, took a semester off before I went. So I forgot everything. And I'd learn things in Japan and I'd be like, oh, that's a cool word. And I'd look in my books and be like, I apparently knew that word 2 years ago. So it was just not sticking. But once you're in Japan and talking to people and working with, especially as a jet with kids, I knew everybody in my neighborhood from like 4 to 30 and their parents. They'd come to my house if I was late, like kids I'd never met before would be like, knock, knock, you're late for like a visit to their school because everyone knew where I lived. But anyway, yeah, since I got back, I immediately used my connections with Jet to, get with the alumni program. They were like, as anybody who's lived in Japan, when you come back, they always told us, people will ask you, hey, how was Japan? They don't really want to know. And so when you're around other people who've been there, it's just like, oh, I can be myself. And everybody understands everyone. There's a nice shorthand. And I started doing interviews. Sometimes I'll work at the consulate. And so now it's been like 25 years almost. And I'm still doing stuff. Got my kids in Japanese immersion school. We go to Obon. We do all sorts of stuff. Everyone thinks my wife's Japanese. I'm like, no.
That's
but anyway,
awesome. That is fantastic. And we should mention that both Zach and Mike are in Southern California. So definitely pay attention to our next YouTube video that we're going to record about SoCal in general. But today we're going to focus also on kind of organizations nationally, if possible. And Takeshi-san and I we can squeeze in some comments from us too. But my second question to the two of you is, now that you're back in the US and now, meaning however many years ago it was, you still have a place in your heart for Japan. You obviously are connected to the community. So tell us a little bit about what organizations that you are either involved in or you know of, whether it's California focused or nationwide. I'll start with the first comment. I'll just mention really quick the Japan America Societies. There's a network around the entire US, but give us a little bit more information about you personally and what you are involved in. So Zach, let's start with you first.
Sure. So I just actually 2 weeks ago went to an event with the Japan American Society of Southern California. Their building is actually located really close to our sister office in Torrance. It is essentially a community of people who have a desire to try to spread their personal passion about Japan, Japanese culture, trying to get that familiarized to Americans, but it also goes the other way. So it was a networking event for both sides. There were, in addition to other Westerners like myself who had studied the culture and the language in the past, there were also, I think about the other half of the people that were attending the event were people from Japan who were in Southern California looking to try to network and meet people. And when I say networking, all of it really just came down to, we just talked like friends for about half an hour to an hour. All networking really is, when you get down to it, at least as far as my experience has been, is just getting to know people and trying to be friendly with them and, establishing a relationship where the two of you can try to be mutually helpful to each other, use your personal experience to try to help better the other person's personal experience to any extent that you can. Whether that be connections or just hanging out if someone's in town and traveling. And to that end, I, personally, my experience with the Japan American Society has been very positive, and I'm really looking forward to keeping that relationship going forward. And all that really means is just messaging them every once in a while and staying in touch, maybe attending some events. So it sounds like a big, scary word, but at the end of the day, all it really comes down to is being friendly with people, going out there and meeting new people and trying to learn a little bit about them. And odds are, if they're at a society like that, they're interested in doing the same thing you are. So there's really nothing to be nervous about. It's just something you can go and do and meet people who are like-minded like yourself and see if you can help each other out.
Awesome. I agree with everything you said. How about you, Mike? You mentioned Jet. You mentioned your children's school. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, man. Well, the good thing about JET is because of the Alumni Association, basically wherever you go, there's going to be some alumni somewhere. So when I first moved out to here, LA, actually, immediately, that was one of the first groups I met. And, the whole point of JET Alumni is doing events with other people to try to keep Japan in your hearts. And then we do karaoke, we get together for festivals. We live near Little Tokyo, or I've always lived near Little Tokyo. So there's always, there's festivals there. There's other events going on. They have a Koban that lists everything that's going on in the area. There's also Southern California, past Torrance and Gardenia, like all these places that are like the new Little Tokyos, basically. And when I first got here, actually, I got a job as a substitute teacher because it's really flexible and you can just, call at 6 a.m. and be like, anything for me? And I happened to do it in Culver City where they had a Japanese immersion program. So I was basically the go-to for those teachers. They would always call me when they went on vacation or however, needed somebody real quick because I could speak to the kids. And then I was like, man, when I have kids, I'm totally doing this. And then I moved up to North Hollywood in Glendale. And if you want, I can just tell them you live with me. But it turned out to be a little easier than that. They opened up another school by the time my first kid was old enough. And so I just applied there, had to get out of LA USD, of course. I'm just like, well, you guys don't have Japanese immersion, right? And they're like, you're right, you can go. So we went over to Glendale and yeah, my kids have been going. My oldest is now in high school. He gave it up for German because he was just doing it because dad made him. And then my youngest is going into 5th grade and she's doing a little better because we got her a tutor. That was a lot of rambling. But so, I mean, yeah, that's one way of networking. I mean, just through parents, if you're old enough to have kids, if that's your thing. There's tons of temples in the area. I mean, we were talking about Obon. There's Obon like every weekend. Plus another friend who's an ex-jet always volunteers at the local temple over in Venice. So anybody can just, hop in and volunteer there and network through that. Because a lot of companies work with the community centers and temples around. We have a whole taiko class not too far from us if we wanted to at a local Japanese center. And actually, I know I've talked too much, but I have a fun story about networking. The last 2 weeks have been crazy. So we went to the Consul General's residence for this Sister City program, which is another thing I recommend people hook up with. Sister City programs all over. There's actually a lot of jets that are in charge as well. So we're at this thing, we get there, they do the whole Meishi thing, like, meet these people. And they're like, hey, how you doing? And like the first people we met were from Aniplex. So they do anime and they're all like, yeah, we work in Santa Monica. And I'm like, oh, cool. Do you skate? They're like, no, but we're going to a skate event with goth music next week. I'm like, Skate Oddity. I go there every month. My kid's like the mascot. And she's like, oh, great. So a week later, I hear Michael and I'm like, hey, what's up? And so the lady from Aniplex came over and she forgot that she apparently never learned how to skate. So that was funny. And so like my daughter was helping her and she brought her friends. And so like while my daughter's trying to help her skate, I'm talking to her friends and one of her friends is an artist and they're all like, yeah, we're going to Comic-Con next week. I'm like, I'm going to Comic-Con next week. So this last weekend we went to Comic-Con and I met up with her friend who had a whole booth in Artist Alley. And like, she gave something to my daughter for helping Miki skate. And then randomly I turned to walk down an aisle and I'm like, excuse me. And I'm like, hey, Miki. And it was the girl again from Aniplex. So yeah, just from one thing like 2 weeks ago, we made a bajillion other connections. And it's just like having an interest. Like I like skating. They showed up for skating. I like Comic-Con. They like Comic-Con. And then, things build from there. And then as long as people like each other, then, it's just like anything, like any friendship. It's all about who you know.
Oh, this is awesome. So we heard ideas such as the Japan America Society or local events, schools that have Japanese, the JET program, consulates and their events, and just Comic-Con and all these other kinds of events that are related to Japan. Am I missing anything? Do you have anything from Texas that you want to recommend?
So in Texas, the population for Japanese population is growing. Compared to LA, California, it's less. But like there's a kendo club, there's a sumo club, like so many hobbies. If you have any hobbies, you find some community, they are, growing there. And then as for the networking, like one thing I always give the advice is for everybody else. I'm not extrovert, I'm introvert as well. But one thing which helps me a lot is like going for a networking event. You don't have to sell yourself, because people always think about it. You have to be salesperson to do the pitch for something. Hey, I'm cool or something like that. Don't do that. You don't have to do that. You just go there and be as you are. And then most of the time, it's just ask the question for somebody. You just go there to find somebody interested. Find what you're interested in and then ask the question. That's the people. And then once you get to know people, then you start connecting them. Friends to friends, something like that. That's gonna be the key for the networking. So anybody who is a little bit nervous about going for a network event, something like that, don't stress too much about sell yourself or like be extrovert. Just be you and then just find somebody who has a common interest. And then that's I think the starting point for the networking.
And that's a great point.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, just, yeah, people can tell when you're just like, I'm only here for a job.
Yeah.
Like you really are interested in what they're talking about and them as a people.
Yeah. Because those things comes later, Once you have to build the network, build a relationship, then someday, it's come out always. So don't be like, hey, please, something like that. Then that's not going to work.
Yeah, it's very true. A lot of people think that networking is it's just for finding a job or it's just for getting a promotion or it's just transactional for whatever you want. But as we've already heard from a lot of our, the stories in this video, it's just about making connections and having friends, something with a similar interest, especially for those of us who are not able to be in Japan, but still want that Japan connection. There's so many ways to do that. And I also forgot to mention what Mike said, the sister city relationships. a lot of that, the art community. There's just so much out there. So we're going to wrap up this video, but I'm going to ask our two guests to give us a parting phrase about, anything you can tell the people who are watching this video, kind of like a tip, your perspective on the networking aspect. Don't be too afraid to go out there and make friends. Anything that you'd like to add? Zach, why don't you go first?
Sure. I'll say that, as a, bigger white dude who speaks Japanese, looking for people who are into similar things as me, people are not nearly as judgmental or as scary as you imagine them in your head. Most of the time, especially if you go to one of those events, the people there have a bunch of stuff inside themselves that they want to talk about, that they have a passion that they're excited to talk about, and they're excited to be around like-minded people. So really, you might hear it a lot, but don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because the most people out there are kind and willing to listen and want to get to know you better, especially if you do decide to go to one of those events. So just don't be afraid, kind of like Kasia said, just to be yourself. You don't have to sell yourself. Just be yourself and you'll find like-minded people, and then just move on from there, just the way you make friends anywhere else.
Perfect. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I was gonna say, those people are there for almost the same reason too. Like they want to, if they're dreading it, they want to be able to come away with like having a good time. And if they met somebody that they really connected with, just on a personal level, they're going to remember that more than anything. When they reflect back on it, and they'll be like, "Man, that guy was awesome. I'm gonna hang out with. Oh, is he gonna make the next networking?" Things like that. And just, I'm reminded of a book by The Master and Margarita. It's an old Russian book, but it's the devil and a witch. But basically, he makes her do things, and she does these things. But the whole time, she really wants to ask a huge favor of him, and she never does. And then finally, he goes, "You know what? You waited until I asked. So what do you want?" That was like the one thing I took from the whole novel was like, just wait until they want to do something. Don't be like, "Hey, man, got a job for me?" Like, don't bring it up. Just just build the relationships first, and then things just take off from there. It's like people tell you when you're dating, they're like, "You know what? Don't look for it, and it'll just happen."
That's great. I'll just say my one quick comment before I pass the mic over to Takeshi-san. But if people are afraid of like even going out there, one quick tip is try volunteering for something, like was already mentioned.
That's right.
Sign yourself up for something, go to some place that you have to be and have to go hand out flyers or do something. That's a really easy way to do it. But that'll be all from me. So Takeshi-san, why don't you wrap up this video for us?
Oh, that's a great idea, Kasia. I always do. I always volunteer for sign up sheet, like a cleaner, something like that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, and then for me, like for the U.S. Japan relationship, usually to be connected to Japan is like working for Japanese company. People think about it, but that's not the only option. There's a lot of different ways that you can be connected to Japan. As Mike said, like going for Japanese school or going for a Obon festival or doing the volunteer for some event. I think for the Jet alumni event, even you are not Jet alumni, they are always welcome.
yeah.
Okay, they are open for everybody. Oh, so find whatever you're interested in, and then be connected in there, and then maybe one day something you're interested in. And then maybe in Japanese companies come up at the same time. Then you get both or something like that. So be connected and then think about long term. All right. I think we heard so many great tips and the idea about networking. And then so this session is going to be like this. And if you have any more information, we're going to leave some information comment area. Please check in below. And then maybe we're going to share the link of the Jet Alumni Association in South California. So if you want to join some event, please click and join for those events. And then
We have lots of friends of Japan. We call them FOJs.
okay. Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Korea.
Wow.